So I've known Daniel for a long time, since he was, I think, 8 or 9 years old. I think he's a very stylish gymnast. He won the Longines Award for Style in 2009. He's always been quite stylish, but he's always been very brave, fearless. I think as a young kid he was always trying. He really loved challenges and he would try anything.
It's really amazing to be training with such an amazing gymnast.
I think he has tremendous physical qualities. So he's fast, he conforms to all the nice shapes and positions. He has good shoulders, good flexibility, but his fearlessness is one of his biggest qualities. He loves challenges and he loves to do potentially dangerous things. He likes taking risks, and this is quite a quality for gymnasts.
He's had a lot of injuries and he's recovered quite nicely, and he's trying to progress through what his injuries have done to him.
Well, there's a few. There's not just one particular achievement. That class is my highest ever achievement. Starting from making the Olympic final in Beijing, just being selected to take part in the Olympics was a massive achievement for me and myself, but also I used it as huge experience as well for the coming years. 2009 World Championships, I came second in the all-around event, which was a massive achievement for me, and the first all-around medal for a British gymnast, so I was pretty happy with that as well. And then obviously becoming European champion in 2010 in Birmingham, and then this year in Russia.
Yeah, he's one of my heroes too, and I'm going to try and follow him.
Yes, I mentioned already, one of the qualities is to be very brave and fearless, but this also has its downside, and the downside was that he tried something that perhaps he shouldn't have been doing. He took a little bit too much of a risk, and he injured himself just doing something in the gym one day.
So I got my gold medal at the Europeans on the pommel horse, and then 2 days later I went back into training, and I think I was just too excited from the competition. I came in here, I was trying loads of different new skills on the apparatus, and I was trying a new skill on the floor area, and I landed on straight legs, and I tore my ACL. But I was hoping it wasn't going to be as bad as it was. I thought maybe a few days it'll be sore, and then it'll come around and it'll be fine. Then I went and got some scans and spoke to all the doctors and physios, and they told me what had happened and I needed to undergo surgery. And from then, I kind of thought, oh my God, I'm going to be out for quite a while. And it was quite upsetting because I've gone from such a high to such a low.
And it took a year out of his life, and we can look back now and say that could have had a very strong impact on his not being selected for the Olympic Games. He missed out some competitions because of it, and it was a very tough blow, very hard. I was quite disappointed. Disappointed is not a strong enough word. I started off being very angry, but very quickly the both of us managed to think about new targets and how to start again. Daniel has an amazing quality of resilience. I think I see it in many gymnasts. They never like to give up. Gymnastics attracts people like that, people that love to keep going and love to fight. So whenever they have a setback, they're always thinking about the next thing. And even when he had the injury, the first time I saw him, he was saying, I can still do this, I can still do that, now I think about this, spend 1 week doing that, then I can start rehabilitating this way. So he was, in his mind, he was already coming back. He's had many setbacks in his career, but he has such a strong desire to keep going.
Well, I was around all the gymnasts and all the national squad while I was still injured, and seeing them improving, and they were still obviously getting results, and Great Britain as a country was getting better and better in the international circuit. So that was giving me motivation to get back and wanted to join the team. Then when I came back, my first competition back was Japan Tokyo Worlds, and I had a nightmare there.
And I think the hardest thing was he became quite nervous again. It really was like starting to perform all over again. When you do many competitions on the circuit, you become familiar with the whole thing. And after this injury, when he first came back, it was like starting again mentally. He was nervous, he wasn't confident, he wasn't sure of his abilities.
You know, my build-up was awesome to it. You know, I was scoring the highest scores I'd ever scored, you know, especially after coming back from an injury as well. I was looking better than I was before my injury. And I think it was just one of those days when nothing goes right. You know, I went out there and made a lot of mistakes, and you know, it just wasn't great. It wasn't great for my confidence either, being my first big competition on the comeback.
He got to, I think, the third piece of apparatus. He had a small mistake on parallel bars. Then he went to high bar and he flew from the high bar, which was very uncharacteristic. He never did it before. Everybody was shocked.
Also, as a team, we didn't do so great, so we didn't gain the qualification spot for the Olympics that we needed, which made us have to go to the test event in January to try and gain that qualification spot.
I think mentally it was a big thing for him because he had this injury to deal with, a lot of expectation from the Japanese media that compared him with Uchimura because it was first and second in 2009. Then he had a long time off, and one of Daniel's sometimes difficult things is he often cares about what other people think, and I think he took too much notice of the media and too much notice of everybody around him saying you're back now, instead of just concentrating on doing what he could do. So it was a difficult competition for him, that one.
It was horrible, you know, not to qualify straight up. You know, it suddenly sunk in that we had to go to the test event and, you know, put a lot of pressure on that competition. We had to do well there, and you know, it was something we hadn't done for, you know, a few years, where our team hadn't qualified in the top 8, so it was really unnatural for us to be in that position. And you know, the whole team were down, and then from then on, you know, we had a big talk and they just said, you know, just lift your spirits high and keep going. And we went to the test event, and you know, I don't think we made one single mistake there, so under that amount of pressure as well, it was great.
For Daniel, he wanted to prove himself, he wanted to prove that he could do something, so he competed much better in the test event. And from then on, I think he learned a very strong lesson from the Tokyo competition in 2011.
So yeah, test event was awesome. You know, I was really on form, and I thought, you know, just hold this form out for another year and, well, half a year, and you know, it'll be fine. London's will be over. I'll be there competing in front of a home crowd. But it was in March, I think it was, and I was training here on the floor area, and I was doing a routine, and I landed from a somersault with both my ankles rolled, and completely snapped 3 ligaments in each ankle, and it wasn't so good at all, you know, especially coming up that close to the Olympics, and there were still qualification events to do as well. So, I tried to come back. I did manage to get back for the British Championships. Obviously, I wasn't as fit as I could have been, especially on the lower limb exercises. But I think I pulled maybe 4 or 5 medals from that British Championships, but obviously it still wasn't enough. I tried my hardest, but it didn't happen. When I got the news that I didn't make the Olympics, it was horrible. You know, I didn't quite believe it at first, but you know, I had to admit to myself that I hadn't made the team. You know, I rang the other boys and, you know, said well done and wished them good luck. But I was the first reserve for the London Olympics, so I had to still train alongside the team and go up to Lilleshall, which I think was the hardest point, because in theory I was training for no reason. You know, and all the years that I'd, you know, put into training, and then not being selected for Olympic Games, especially in your home country, that doesn't come around much. It was so hard to deal with, and it did make training really hard.
It was a hard time. It was a horrible time. I fought very hard for Daniel. I thought he deserved to go. We made a very strong case for him. He came 3rd in the British Championships. His score was 90. I think everything was there and ready to go, but unfortunately the selection panel didn't select him. So it was a crushing blow, and for Daniel, it was. I could easily have expected that he would stop, he would finish gymnastics, because everything was aiming towards the London Olympics. So I don't know how he managed to keep going. He had a few weeks of just doing nothing, relaxing, and then gradually he started to think about proving a point. The only thing that I could say to him at the time was, Dan, I don't agree with this selection. I don't think he was right. I think you should be going to the Olympics. The only thing I know that you can do now is to come back and prove everybody that you're such a beautiful gymnast. I never expect people to be in the team. I always think that you have to earn your place, you have to fight, and every year in Great Britain the level is going up, so it becomes harder. From 2008, when it was just Lewis and Daniel in Beijing, each year there were more and more gymnasts coming in, and I said to the boys many times, this is not an expectation, you have to work very, very hard. And I think for Daniel it was in doubt because of this injury he had before. If he hadn't have had this mistake, this injury in 2010, then it would have been a whole lot easier. But having this 1 year out and then trying to come back and to build the confidence and to prove to the selectors without any competitions before was a very difficult task.
I was, to see them get the bronze medal in the team competition, I was a bit gutted. I wish I was out there in the team, being able to celebrate with all the guys. But at the end of the day, they've been my friends. They're almost like family. I've grew up training with them, for 10 plus years, and it was amazing just to see them do as well as they could.
But I think it must have been so difficult for him to have actually watched his colleagues at the competition that he wanted, that he'd worked all his life for. It must have been extremely hard. He stayed away. He did some things. He was very supportive of his friends there, but I'm sure it must have been very hard for him to accept.
Yeah, I was sat in the crowd, because they are my friends and family. I wanted to go there and give them all the support I could. I knew if I was in the team and one of them didn't make the team, they'd do the same. So I'm glad I went there. While the Olympics was going on as well, I had an operation on my wrist, and I thought this is the time now to sort everything out before everything kicks off again, starting in the next cycle. So I went to, my first competition was in Germany. I had some good individual results, and that really did give me the confidence again, because I got back in the team to push on and start training well and competing well again. I made the sacrifice to go up to the national centre 4 times a week, which is where I train now.
Working with his rivals, his competitors, this I think was a very good step, because he needs that competition. And sometimes in Huntingdon, when we just have 1 or 2 gymnasts, with Lewis stopping now, it's quite difficult to keep the motivation going. And
that really seems to be working for me at the moment. Looking at my result from the European Championships earlier this year, I think there was a lot of pressure on me there as well, obviously, because I didn't make the Olympic teams and I wanted to go out there. I felt like I had something to prove, and which I hopefully have. So just go in there and do the best routine I can, just try and get that result and prove to everyone that I can get the result. And I did the best routine I could, and when I landed it was excitement and relief at the same time that I'd managed to do that again on an international scene. And then when the score came up, obviously beating the Olympic champion and the Olympic bronze medalist, it was just such an amazing feeling.
Yeah, he had a big point to prove, and I think after this was my strong thing as a coach. I wanted him to understand that the world didn't end after 2012, and just because he wasn't selected, it was a big competition, but in the end it was only a competition, and he has a very strong point to prove. I still think that he is one of the best gymnasts in this country. I still think he has potential to make medals at the Olympic Games, and I think he understands that now. What's a big pleasure for me is that he's grown up mentally a lot, and now he thinks with a very mature feeling that he can work for himself, and he is doing this for himself. Whereas before it might have been me pushing all the time. Now he is his own man, and he's making his decisions and wanting to prove that he can do this.
I think the statement was saying that I'm back, after not being selected for the Olympics and all these injuries, to come back and become European champion. I think it really does say that I'm back. Don't forget about me. I'll be there in the next few competitions.
So I think Daniel's big target now is to get to the World Championships to make the team for Antwerp. I think he can make some good challenges. This is the same World Championships as in 2009, the one directly after the Olympic Games, where he came second all around. So he has this experience, and I think coming from behind when you have these difficult times can often strengthen you mentally. So it should be good for him.
Well, there's European Championships and World Championships every year. So hopefully I can carry on my form and final and medal at each one of them. There's the Commonwealth Games next year in Scotland, which is obviously massive, as I compete for Scotland as well. So that's going to be like the Olympic Games I never got, and then obviously the Olympic Games in Rio. A man's best successes come after his disappointments. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit.